What's happening, folks? This video is brought to you by Manscaped, the world's best in below the waist grooming. They're back with the Lawnmower 4.0. Remember the last time we did a Manscaped integration, it was a 3.0. They've made it even better again. The 4th generation trimmer features a cutting edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents. It's got a 7,000 RPM motor. It's got a travel lock. It's even waterproof if you want to groom in the shower. If that's what you're into, the Lawnmower 4.0 has got you sorted. You can use it to trim your beard, your head, whatever it is you trim. The Lawnmower 4.0 has got you sorted. You can get 20% off and free shipping with the code CFTV at manscaped.com. I'll post a link in the description. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code CFTV. Get involved, enjoy the video. Cheers.
What's happening, folks? Welcome back to Celtic Fans TV. It's time for the post-match pint after Celtic 2, Aberdeen 1. We're here in the superb setting of Malone's Bar in Glasgow. We're on the roof, the redesigned roof as well. So if you're in the area, jump in, have a beer, soak up the atmosphere. It's a bit quiet tonight, but there you go. Got Kenny with me to talk over the game. Kenny, what do you make of that one today? Vital 3 points, but a bit scrappy, wasn't it?
Yeah, but look, the team are under a lot of pressure there. They're carrying a really heavy 90 minutes in their legs from Thursday. They're 7 points behind at kick-off. And the last 2 times I've been on here, we've drew with Dundee United, we've drew with Livingston, and we've been sitting here thinking the long-term togetherness of the side means that we don't know how to win ugly. We don't know how to grind out a result when you're under pressure. So if one thing is to be said about the whole result, the mentality is strong to come through that 2-1, take the points under that sort of pressure. I think the result against St Johnstone was a bit of a grind as well. So, okay, we're not doing that in Europe, but if we're starting to reach that type of result domestically, I think that's an improvement in the side. We've thrown some whirlwind performances, but to date we've not really saw grinding out results, and today was a classic example of that. If you think about the actual side, the actual contribution to the result, I think we're in a period, we're entering a period now that is the most intense of any season. You can't refresh, you can only refresh your side on the 1st of January, but you're going into a period after that international break where you're playing twice a week and the demand is high, and I think we're starting to see a bit of a creak on our squad. I was a bit disappointed when Forrest wasn't starting coming into the game. Now, I suppose you just need to trust the medics on that because they're saying they're trying to manage him. It's a bit surprising given a few days ago they're saying he's in the best condition he's ever been in this season. Because Abada coming in, Abada's been out of form, and I don't think he did himself any favours today either. He was a bit lacklustre. He's not going by his man. I think he overperformed in the early part of the season, and we're thinking, he's a teenager coming in from Israel and he overperformed. So he set himself a high bar and he's coming down from that. But I wasn't particularly pleased with his performance. McCarthy has probably split the support today because in one respect, he's playing a lot of nice, simple passes, keeping things straight. And that's his role, right? Because he's got so many forwards ahead of them, he's got to be disciplined. But for me, I still think he's got to take the ball a bit more in a half turn. He's got to get his head up. He's got to carry the ball a bit further forward and offer a bit more. He did get an assist in effect for the winning goal, but it was about the only sort of forward pass he played in the game. So I was a bit disappointed with his contribution. But if you think about positives, the defence were sound. I mean, it was uncomfortable at the end there. I know Aberdeen are out of form, but on paper, they're still one of the strongest sides in the league. They did make it uncomfortable at the end, and we saw that out in a relatively resolute way. I thought Vickers was strong. He carries that defence at the moment for me in the central area. And Jota, put a contract in front of Jota on the 1st of January. Now, I know it's not that simple because he himself might be saying, well, I'll bide my time at the end of the season. I might get double my money in England. And it might be that his agent swayed him that way. But we've got to do everything we can in our power to try and get him to sign that deal in January. Now, whether we've got the funds is another thing, I don't know, because we've hit a financial loss through COVID like most companies in the world. But we have to do everything in our muster. Because if we sign him for $6 million, overnight you treble your money because he's worth way more than that. Aye. We've got this golden opportunity from the contract that we can get him on the cheap. We've got to try and do it. And he was brilliant for that. They put us a bit under pressure early doors. But even before he scored, he just has some magic touches that just makes the difference. He's starting to carry the side. So overall, really happy. Nothing spectacular really to discuss for us today, I would say, overall. Yeah. But you've got to be happy that we're developing, at least domestically, a mindset that's grinding out results, because that's how you win things.
Aye, absolutely. That's so important for us because, as you say, rightly, like we've had a couple of games this season already where we haven't been able to find a way to get 3 points, particularly in those 2 home games that you mentioned the last time you've been on. But you talked about Jota there, an absolute superstar. I remember his first couple of games thinking, was he going to be one of these wingers who is a box of tricks but maybe lacks an end product? But you can see the end product is there the goal tally, the goal return that we're getting from him is brilliant for a wide player. And again today, I thought the first goal was really, really good. Aberdeen looked relatively aggressive with their press in the first 10 minutes, and then they just kind of dropped off. But I thought that first goal was really good. Turnbull's ball into the channel from McGregor, and then the cut back for Jota to finish it. He's getting goals. So much of our play came down that left-hand side in the first half, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's imbalanced because we're feeding him all the time, so it might become easy for people to read, but you can't read him because he does have a box of tricks. I mean, there's no doubt, and they're really effective because he's so gifted. But he's clever. He knows when to play direct. He knows how to get to the byline. His balls into the box are good. His finishes are clever. And his attitude is brilliant. I mean, look at his post-match interviews. We all love them because he's such a character and he gets the club. And all of that is really important. I've never seen a bad do a post-match interview and that's no fault of his. But Jota has really embraced the club. So £6 million is an absolute snip for him. I don't know how Benfica see him going forward. They might be looking at this and saying, well, we'll try and sway him to come back into our squad, turn down Celtic and we'll sell you for 20 million in a year's time. That may well be the way it pans out, but we've got to enjoy him while he's here and we've got to do everything we can to try and sign him because he's the heartbeat of the side. Kyogo is also the heartbeat of our side, but there are times where he can be in and out of games just because he's playing on the shoulder and he's waiting for people to feed him. Jota doesn't really need people to feed him. He's getting the ball a lot during the game and he's causing real damage. I mean, I can't remember. When was the last time with a winger of his quality? You're going back a long time to call out a winger of that quality in the Celtic side.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Aberdeen did get back in the game through a penalty. I think it was Abada that fouled Bates. Second phase of a corner. I think Bates just got there before him. Ferguson scored the penalty, and then you have that concern because we've seen it in the Dundee United game where we went ahead and we got pegged back and we just couldn't find any rhythm in the game after that, and we didn't really create a lot. Aberdeen today didn't create a lot aside from the penalty. Really, they had a couple of corners as you mentioned earlier at the end, but you just had that concern that gave them something to cling on in the game and they were going to make it really difficult for us. And the one thing you always get from Aberdeen is they're physical and they make the game scrappy, and I think that's what they did, particularly towards the end of that first half and the early period of the second half.
Yeah, I don't actually think they did themselves any favours tactically because when we scored, they pushed another man into midfield because their sort of low block had fallen, that tactic had fallen apart. And when they pushed another man into midfield, it made quite a bit of a difference. We didn't seem very readied for that. They got their equaliser out of that and they stayed that way for the remainder of the first half. After they scored, they were the better side right through till half time. We didn't really know how to sort of handle the fact that they were pressing us. So when they came out in the second half, they seemed to revert back to a low block, which perversely suited us because it just gave us the territorial sort of advantage. So I don't think they did themselves any favours tactically. But, I mean, overall, against any sort of low block, you've got to be pleased if you can grind out a result, even if it is with, a central defender whacking the ball off your captain's foot of the boot and into the net. But winning is all that matters, and we ground it out.
Aye, absolutely. We've talked about Jota. You mentioned Abada as well in terms of his form just now. I thought down the right-hand side today, defensively at times, as I said, that period towards the end of the first half where Aberdeen were probably at their strongest in the game, they were getting down our right-hand side. Juranovic got in a couple of crossing positions on the left-hand side, and
he can't cross because he's not got a left foot. I know, it's so stark.
Ralston's delivery today wasn't very good for the right-hand side, and Abada had a couple of great opportunities to cross, and his delivery is just so poor. So the right-hand side is a bit of a problem for us. It's a real weakness. We've talked about how we were constantly going down the left-hand side because that's where we're strongest, but the difference when Forrest comes on to the pitch is stark. You can see it. It really changes the game for us. It happened last week at Hampden as well. Do you think the manager should bite the bullet and get Juranovic to right back and get a more sort of balanced lineup?
It's quite a difficult question because I think Ralston actually played well today and he's got his Scotland cap because of his endeavour and because he has played consistently well. And sometimes you kind of think it's a bit condescending, that was good for Ralston. I actually think that's unfair. He's actually playing at a high level, Ralston.
Yeah.
I would suggest. So if Juranovic comes to right back, he needs to go out the side, which is unfair. That being said, we're Celtic, right? We've got to measure ourselves at a high level. And on balance, I do think Juranovic needs to come into right back and we've got to recruit somebody at left back in January. And that left back's got to be an improvement in Greg Taylor because Greg Taylor has been an okay servant so far, but I don't think he's going to get you to the levels that we want to be at, whereby we're winning a league and performing well in Europe. So I think the medium-term goal, or perhaps the short-term goal, because January's almost upon us, is get a left-back in that's got quality, that we have confidence in, that can take us to that next level. Because we need, particularly in a game like that, when you're against a low block, you've got to have your full-back shelling forward. Yeah. And when they're in that area, whether it be the byline or whether a bit deeper to whip a ball in, you can't be relying on Juranovic's left foot because he's blazing the ball out of the park. And I don't blame him for that. He's a brilliant defender, and I'd love to see him on that right-hand side whipping balls in because he's clearly got a great right foot. So, yeah, I think the full-backs at the moment, it's a bit harsh on Ralston, but considering everything in the round, he's probably going to find himself out the side, but pushing Juranovic really closely in case Juranovic is a drop in form.
Yeah, I thought on Thursday there when Juranovic at left-back, he gave the ball away a few times in his own half, and it was when he was coming inside with it, and it just looked like it wasn't a natural... He's not in his natural position, so he looked a wee bit hesitant on the ball when he was coming inside the pitch with it.
Because it's demanding for the fullbacks. Don't normally do that, right? Aye. They don't play in an inverted way. Yeah. He's a Croatian starting international. He's probably rarely in his career been forced into the middle of the park, particularly when you don't have a left peg and you're playing at left back. So there's a lot of stress on Juranovic at the moment, and he's handling it excellently. But it's not sustainable. It needs to change.
Aye. We talked about Kyogo just before we came on there. Little in the way of chances for him today, but him and Jota so integral in terms of the creativity and the energy that they bring to the team. He did get that one chance at the end. Joe Lewis made a good save. But the thing that just blows me away, I mean, you mentioned Jota, and thinking back to when was the last time we had a winger that was so effective. I can't remember a player that gives so much on the pitch. Like the way Kyogo does. Like, his energy chasing down the goalkeeper is like incessant. It never ends. It doesn't matter if it's the first minute or the 86th minute. He's going to charge down the keeper, sprinting, giving it all that he's got. And that is a guarantee from him, regardless of how involved he is in the game. If people are reading his runs or not, if he's getting a lot of the ball, you're guaranteed that effort from him, and that is important for us.
Yeah, I mean, you could look at that game today and, well, Kyogo's not really involved. He's not scored again. That would be a completely unfair assessment of his contribution. He's played a full season in Japan, but even before he's came to us, presumably fatigue is setting in. The other 10 players were way more fatigued than Kyogo. He's bouncing around, putting them under all sorts of pressure. Look how disconsolate he is when he goes off the park when he's not scored. He lives and breathes scoring goals. The little guy was just sodden when he went off the park and didn't score. But that's amazing because that means he's playing with his heart. And we need people that are going to play with their heart. And then, you're right, 86 minutes, he's closing men down, putting the ball out the park, and that means something. Because it means Aberdeen can't come up and they can't put us under pressure for an equaliser. Yeah. These little contributions matter. So, he's a credit to the jersey, Kyogo. Even in a game like that, when you compare him to his understudies who come on and are so starkly different, Ayeti's sort of attitude, I would question at least this season. But the polar opposite in Kyogo, he should not be penalised for not scoring today because... it's a pleasure for us to have him around based on his attitude.
Aye, a credit to the jersey. I love that. I think that's probably the highest compliment that you could pay him. We've talked about grinding it out. We did that today. We've got so many important games coming up. Another one on Thursday against Hearts. I think the home games that we've got coming up, counting today and Thursday, are tough. We go to Tannadice next Sunday as well. So these are tough games, but it's so important for us to keep up a bit of momentum, to keep winning. Rangers played before us today, so as you say, that gap goes to 7 points because they win. So we've got to keep as close to them as possible before New Year.
I think so, and I think based on the fact that we can't recruit till January, based on the fact that our injuries, we went through a spell there, what felt like a rare spell where we didn't have too many injuries. That's now reversed. We do have a number of people who would probably start out. For me, it's just about, if it's 4 points getting into the 2nd of January, so be it. And we're in touch. We weren't in touch this time last year. I think we were 7 points getting into that game in the new year, but psychologically the league was already over at that point because we were a mess. We're not a mess now. So if we can just keep that gap to the 2nd of January and really force them in that game, I think that's something we should really aim for. I don't believe that we've got the ability to rest players, unfortunately, in this demanding session that's coming up. Rogic we miss. Mm-hmm. We do miss Rogic. We're not finding Kyogo because I believe in part because Rogic's not in the park. We miss his brain, we miss his ability, and there is no sort of second person that we can slot in that sort of performs at a similar level. So hopefully he's back. I don't know when he is back. Starfelt at the back will probably give us a bit more security. So hopefully we can get returned injured players back in this demanding period of games, recruit in January and then push on. But it's just, I agree with you, it's about maintaining the gap over the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, I don't know what's happened with Rogic, because I think they said 2 or 3 weeks when he first went out with injury, and I think it's been closer to 4 weeks now. So hopefully he's on the way back and he'll be involved in the next couple of matches. Just in terms of the team on Thursday, you've probably already answered this as we've gone through, but would you like to see James Forrest come in and start against Hearts?
Yeah, look, I think Aberdeen needs a spell out of the side. It's been a bit unfair on him, the amount of games we've asked him to play. I mean, presumably when we signed him, we didn't see him playing this amount of games before Christmas. So it seems an obvious one. I'd like to hope that James, he looks in great physical condition now, and he should be fresh because he's not played anywhere near the games of the other people. So he's an obvious person to come in on the right-hand side. I mean, I think I would probably put McCarthy out if Rogic comes back in, or if Beaton come back in. I don't know if they're going to be back in on Thursday. I don't really know the extent of Beaton's injury either. I would bring him in if he was available. Unfortunately, there's not a great deal for us to do in terms of change. Yeah. When you're thinking about future games and you're thinking about how do we shift things because of fatigue, we kind of just need to grin and bear it. But look, the guys, they do look up for it. They were a bit leggy towards the end of the game there, but I think with Postecoglou's intensity, we can have some sort of faith that even within this demanding schedule, at least for the first 60, 70 minutes of games, we are going to be pressing people. But definitely on Thursday, Forrest comes in at right midfield. I don't think we'll have the luxury necessarily of making any other changes.
Yeah, I agree. I'd like to see Forrest come in. Last one, just before we finish up tonight. Celtic Park paid tribute to Bertie Auld today. What an icon, what a hero. And it was nice to see the scenes before the game with Scott Brown coming out, Callum McGregor, and laying the wreath on the pitch, and stayed at Celtic Park together paying tribute to him.
Yeah, and then, I mean, when Scott Brown went off injured, I've never ever seen an opposing player get a reception like that for an injury. That in itself was amazing. But Bertie Auld just an incredible servant of the club. I mean, you think, in essence, he wasn't necessarily different to any of the other Lisbon Lions that we've paid homage to in the past, but he was different because of his character. He had everyone's hearts. And it was nice today, since he unfortunately passed away, we've not had an opportunity for a home game to give him the sort of send-off he wants. I'm sure his family were really proud of the scenes they saw today before kick-off. And we got another win for him. So, yeah, an amazing player, an amazing man. Something that means a lot to my father. And, nice to give him that send-off.
Absolutely. There you go. That's it for the post-match pint tonight. Like this video. Comment with your own thoughts below. Please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. And we'll see you during the week for the build-up to Hearts. Cheers.